Okay, so it is April and it is Rhode Island, and so you're starting to notice these bushes pop those yellow flowers all over the place. This plant is called a Forsythia, and historically it indicates the best time of year to put down your weed preventers on your lawn. Now, we use a product called Crabgrass Preventative and a fertilizer combination. If you're used to using a 4-step fertilizer program, usually that step 1 is crabgrass control, and the timing is key. So the packages, we're going to tell you apply this product anywhere from February till April. But the reality is that's because they're selling that program up and down the East Coast or all over the country. So for here in New England, I always tell everybody, watch your own backyard. If you don't have these bushes in your yard, your neighbor probably does. And if they're blooming, it's historically time to put down your crabgrass preventers and fertilizers to help prevent weeds. If you're not familiar with crabgrass is one of the most noxious weeds that we deal with in our lawns. And luckily it is annual. So it's going to start off every season from seed. And so we have that lucky opportunity that if we messed up last year, we can start over again this year. Most lawns are starting to green up and looking pretty decent. But right now, we want to keep it that way, and we want to help that grass rebound from the last year. But the weeds are going to take advantage of the fertilizer just as well as the grasses that we're putting down. So it's important to go and try to prevent some weeds from kicking in, choking out, and competing with that grass for the nutrient, the space, and the sunlight. So if you're doing a 4-step program, which many people have done, what that is all the major manufacturers will typically put out a kit of 4 different fertilizer applications, all with different treatments to help prevent you from putting the wrong products at the wrong time or taking care of your lawn. But when you're putting down crabgrass preventatives, the timing is imperative that you got to get it down in spring, typically before the crabgrass starts growing. Now, when you're doing crabgrass preventatives, you have to pay attention because, one, give up on trying to seed this spring. I'm not a big advocate on putting down grass seed in the spring months. Even though we'll sell 2/3 of our grass seed for the year in spring, I don't recommend it unless it's a really annoying spot and you're just spot treating, because you've got to be prepared to water all season. Completely different topic than crabgrass. Right now, the biggest thing you got to pay attention to is crabgrass preventatives don't know the difference between a grass seed and a weed seed. So the bottom line is, if you're committing to put down the crabgrass preventatives, which I highly recommend to prevent problems from happening, you can't seed. It's going to stop your grass seed. It's going to stop everything from growing. Okay, just a couple things to keep in mind when you're applying crabgrass preventatives and fertilizer. One, it's not really weather dependent. So as long as those bushes are starting to bloom, Mother Nature's telling you it's time. And although you can't put it down while it's raining out or while the grass is physically wet because it won't spread very easily, you don't have to water it in for it to do a job. Mother Nature will typically take care of that for us in the spring. And the weed preventers are going to last for about 12 weeks. So that's why I say give up on seeding for the spring, because you're not going to be able to. It's going to stop your grass seed from growing just as well as the weed seed. Now, if you do need to seed in the spring, there are 1 or 2 products that can be used, and typically it's called Crabgrass Preventative for new seeding. And it's just what it sounds like. There is 1 or 2 chemicals out there that can be used on your lawn with a starter fertilizer that will help suppress weeds and allow your grass seed to grow up. But that is a very specific product, so you need to look at the package and make sure it says specifically on the surface for new seeding. Now, what is crabgrass? Crabgrass is a noxious weed that the reason it does so much damage is the fact that it kicks in later in the season when it starts warming up. So as it gets hot and the grass starts going dormant, crabgrass flourishes and loves it. And then at the same time, one of the things that is a tricky little weed, because many of them grow up and you can see it, but crabgrass, once you mow it, it starts growing flat. And when it starts going flat, what it really starts doing is start choking out the grass on the side of it, because it starts smothering it. So what typically happens is maybe you'll get 1 little crabgrass plant this year, and then it makes a little 1/2-inch opening. The following season, you get 2 crabgrass plants that grow in that spot, and it just starts creeping. And one year you can look at it and your grass looks like this, and it looks okay. It's spring, it's half dormant, but then all of a sudden you turn around later and you can have big, thin, bare patches like this that start getting up because in the summer it just looks green. And customers don't need we pay attention in the spring months. Once we start hitting cookout season, most of us don't pay attention. As long as it's green, it's kind of background noise. It's not till fall comes around or the following spring comes around that we look at it and we're like, where did all that bare spot come from? Well, that's why you got to get down your weed preventers, because when you have bare soil and we're saying wait till fall to overseed, that means we need to use the chemicals to try to suppress the growth of the weeds so that we have time and room to do a renovation in the fall. Now, one other thing that we do on our maintenance programs is we recommend doing the Crabgrass Preventative twice. We'll put it down now. Then we'll wait another 6 or 8 weeks to put down our second dose of fertilizer, and then we'll do stage 1 again. Our weather here in Rhode Island, especially out on Aquidneck Island or any of the areas next to the water, is just crazy weather patterns. And the reality is crabgrass is not going to germinate and start doing any damage in the lawn until we start hitting 80 degrees on a regular basis. The ground needs to be warm. So what I find is here in Rhode Island, our weather bounces around all over the place. And when we historically put it down when the Forsythia come in bloom, some years if we get into a gloomy May and the weather's really cool for a long period of time, I find that customers were coming in complaining about a late season crabgrass and that they got a second flush of crabgrass. You didn't get a second flush of crabgrass. The difference was we never warmed up. The crabgrass never germinated in the first place. So that's why sometimes we recommend doing a second application in 6 to 8 weeks after the first one to get you extended control through the summer months. Because there's nothing worse than having a beautiful looking lawn in the spring and then summer kicks in and the weeds kick in to gear, and by fall you have nothing left but weeds. Hope that helps. Take care.